God bless you, everyone. We're still talking about this little subject on levels of sin real quick, and we'll move on to some other stuff. But class, before I even do this, I want my class to go to Psalm 51. Go to Psalm 51, and in the first three verses, I want you to discover for me the three levels of sin, three levels of sin. All right? Three types of sin. Three types. And I say levels because each one of these are dealt with by God in a different way. And thus I call them levels, because some sins are greater than others. And that's why we call them levels of sin. The word sin is really the lightest sin in the Bible. It means to miss the mark. That's all sin really is to miss the mark. It's you didn't go as far, or you went too far, or you went a little to the left or a little to the right. You understand? That's the lightest thing. Then next on the levels of sin is transgression. And that is to willfully step over a line, a landmark, that's something that God has set. Iniquity is another one. It's a greater one. And this one many times is punishable by death. It's iniquity. It's not just unconfessed sin. As for years we heard that in churches, unconfessed sin, but it's not. It's greater than that. Iniquity is to try to control events, with your own behavior, or control events, take events out of God's hand and control them yourself. And this is why in Ezekiel chapter 28, God says to Satan, this was the sin he said he found in him. He says, you were beautiful, you were blameless until iniquity was found in thee. Okay? Because he was saying that I will set my throne above God. Iniquity seeks to be its own God and to control matters. And this is why, this is the point of my video this morning real quick, as I'm going into work. Samuel told Saul about his levels of sin. He told him about it. Samuel was looking at his sins very lightly. And Samuel wanted Saul to know that these things are very grievous sins. Don't look at this as like this just some kind of happenstance. And even Saul himself said that this is a transgression. It's overlooked. I just overlooked a few details about not bringing those sheep and animals back. And I was listening to the people. I was concerned about their feelings and what they needed. And I kind of overlooked some of the details of God. And Samuel was letting them know, listen, your rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. You know, as well as Saul knew, that the sin of witchcraft, that sin was punishable by death. All right? Saul himself killed all the witches until he himself needed a witch, and he met a witch at Endor. Now that word is very, very prophetic, and I don't have time to deal with it as I'm on my way into work. And then he goes on to say that your stubbornness is as the sin of iniquity. And that too is punishable by death. And he says iniquity and idolatry, and those sins are punishable by death. All right? So he's letting him know, Saul, don't play around with God like that. Don't do it. He said, what you have done against God is punishable by death. And so this is just a quick little video. We're talking about the levels of sin. We can go deeper, so many more points. We can deal with Old Testament sacrifices and how some sacrifices needed a female offering. That's for a lesser sin. But there were other sacrifices that God says, because this sin was so egregious and so bad, he said, I needed more strength in the sacrifice, and thus it had to be a male offering. Have you ever wondered why Jesus had to be a male? Why he had to be a sacrifice lamb, a male? Why God sent a man into the world to die for the sins of the world? Because the sins of the world were on a level that was so great that a male had to come and sacrifice. All right? Yeah, look that up too. And y'all just have a really blessed day and enjoy the greatness of our God. How great is our God.